Right, welcome back to the Boiling Point podcast. This is episode 20, the hero worship, and I have back with me someone who hasn't been on. He's been busy. He's a very busy man. JMC, Jordan Michael Coulson. Of course, he was a stand-in for Captain America and the Winter Soldier. He has his own classes, his own what would you call them? What are they called?
I don't even. I did the class tonight, actually, as a matter of fact. But basically, I'm the marketing director for Two Golds Gyms, Campville and Lingelstown. We have our own virtual network now. It's 5btv.net. I wrote. There's John. How you doing? We have a plethora of classes, educational stuff, nutritional stuff. It's really cool. I'm the executive producer of the whole platform, so that's been killing me with my schedule. I'm still in the clubs every day, but we're doing this virtual thing too. So that's why I haven't been on the show, but I've been paying attention. Congratulations on 20 episodes, dude. That is a milestone. It's hard to do. It's hard to coordinate every week. I don't think people realize how much work goes into it, but you've been doing it, man. It's a good show. I've been keeping up with it.
I appreciate that you've been keeping up with it, and I appreciate your support. And I also appreciate that you were able to be back on the show now, that you were able to take some time out of your very busy schedule. As he just told you, everything that he does, that would keep anybody busy 24/7. So I'm glad you could take a little bit of time and join me on the podcast again. And for all the viewers out there, if you enjoy this podcast, support us by clicking the like, share, comment, subscribe. Also go to bonfire.com/store/JDEDESIGNz with a Z and buy some apparel. You can also buy some of the Boiling Point podcast apparel now at www.bonfire.com/the Boiling Point podcast. We're also on Facebook, and Jordan's dog likes everything that I'm saying.
She's
So,
she's quiet.
so she's obviously very excited to also be on the podcast here.
Yeah, it's all about her. All the time. Get over here.
And
Get over here.
all right, we'll cut at 3 minutes.
I mean, she's beautiful.
Oh no, you want to keep going? Good. Okay, good. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
She loves the
She
point.
just wanted to be on the camera. That's all it was.
She wanted to be seen. Get over there. Of course, she never does this until I'm trying to do something. So
Yes. Well, I mean, she's excited you're on the Boiling Point podcast.
of course she is. Who wouldn't be? So yeah, 20 episodes, man. It's a big deal.
Yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate your support, and I'm glad that you took time tonight to be on the show. You wanted to talk about, and I was happy to do it. It's a great topic. We're going to talk about celebrities and why we seem to give them hero worship, and why we don't always seem to actually see what kind of a person somebody is before we just immediately side with their point of view or what they have to say. They have a lot of sway and influence for some reason. Over the people, not necessarily the people who make the decisions necessarily, but at least the people, and it's a big sway, and we're going to talk some about that tonight. So, who would you like to start us off? You take us down the road, and
Well, part of the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, look, we're still in a worldwide pandemic in a lot of ways. We're not out of the woods yet, and I think more now than ever, at least people who are kind of woke or in the know are really learning what's essential and what's not essential. And I don't mean that in the terms of like an essential employee or things like that. But like when the rubber meets the road, John, like our favorite movie star, our favorite rapper, our favorite athlete isn't going to come save us. They're not the people that are administering treatment in a hospital. They're not the doctors. They're not the firefighters, not the police officers. Although I know supporting police officers is a hot topic issue in itself right now. But I'd like to think that the average person, average folks are appreciating more of the essential people that are in our lives now than ever. But at the same time, then I look at, the Kardashians and people like that. And I don't mean to hate on the Kardashians. I certainly don't hate them. And I have celebrities that I look up to as well. But I find it very interesting where people's priorities lie and what they do. So I wanted to kind of throw it back to you, John. Are there any celebrities, athletes, actors, whatever, that you do look up to And if there are, what makes you look up to those people? Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just think there needs to be some perspective, which we'll iron out on the course of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say that I have both heroes in that are like normal people that I look up to in life, and then there are the celebrities that you kind of look up to. I think everybody has some celebrities in some fashion that they look up to. And one of them would certainly I would have to say it would be Dale Earnhardt, who was a Winston Cup champion. He's a NASCAR driver. He died on the track. I watched the race. He died. But I think it's important to know that even though I kind of like looked up to him, you got to like separate like the celebrity from and the man. You know what I mean? Like Dale Earnhardt was not a perfect man whatsoever. He wasn't always there for his kids for some of his kids when they were younger. He has a movie 3. It's a very accurate representation of his life actually. And he does not get to spend a lot of time with some of his kids when they're first born. It's not until later in life that he becomes the father and the man that he always strived to be. And he wasn't perfect. And that's the important thing. You got to look up to somebody, but is it you're looking up to about them? And for me, for Dale Earnhardt, it was about his work ethic. That's what kind of like for him inspired me because he was just every race, every track, and he was always, racing at the front. And then another one I would have to say is actually professional wrestler Sting. Steve Borden is his real name, and he's been my favorite wrestler since I was, a kid, and he's actually getting ready to come back in the ring again now. After retiring, he had a spinal cord injury. Didn't think he was ever going to get back in the ring again. Did DDP yoga, and here he might be getting back in the ring. I don't know if he's going to be in a wrestling capacity or just like a managerial or manager or something like that, but he's going to get back in. And the reason that I looked up to him is because in the professional wrestling world, in that kind of world, and in today's world at all, he's also a Christian as I am. I mean, he's devoted to God, and he has strong opinions about his character. He doesn't let his character do certain things or act certain ways. And in the wrestling world, it's really hard to keep control of your own character and what you want that character to be. And to be able to maintain his faith in the wrestling industry through the time that he did, through the 80s and the 90s, is just that would have to have been a very hard thing to do.
And his character still resonates with people to this day. When he returned to when he made his debut in WWE in 2014 or 15,
yeah,
he was over like $1 million. And just recently on Wednesday night, he came out on TNT on AEW, which was unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen. My jaw dropped. He looks great. He's the type of guy, like you said earlier, that even in the Attitude Era, in the era that was based on sex and violence and some vulgarity, he never went into that. And he and he still resonated with people. So a lot of people feel the same way that you do and echo your sentiments. And I mean, he's a legend in every sense of the word. So it's great to see him back, great to see him healthier. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what he has to do. A lot of fans were like, oh, there's more old guys that are holding young guys back. Bullcrap. Sting does business the right way, always has. Yep. If anything, he's going to elevate these young guys, and already did just by that one stare he had with Darby Allin. Already made me care more about Darby Allin.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And talk about a perfect person to put him with, Darby Allin. Talk about a perfect person to put him with. Oh my goodness, Darby Allin. When I first started watching AEW, the first person I was drawn to was Darby Allin, and it's because he gave me a very Sting-ish vibe. So I was immediately drawn to Darby Allin. And this quick Sting story. We're not going to stay on professional wrestling very long, so make sure you stay tuned in. But Sting, actually, the first time he became world champion, Ric Flair was the one that made that call. It wasn't the executives. It wasn't whoever was in charge of creative. It was Ric Flair. Ric Flair said, no, tonight I'm putting Sting over. Sting is winning the belt from me tonight. That was Ric Flair doing that. And yes, with no doubt in my mind, is Sting going to do the exact same thing to people in AEW. He's going to be like, yeah, put me against Darby Allin. Let's hype this thing. Let's have a big story. And then at the end, he can kick my ass and he can get over huge with the crowd for being the legend, the icon Sting. He'd be all about it. He would not have a problem with losing to the new guys.
No, absolutely not. So that's it's interesting that you bring up Sting, because I've always looked up to and idolized professional wrestlers for a couple different reasons. One, it's like they were just larger than life characters,
Yeah.
and it's always something that I felt like I couldn't do in my personal life, so I could kind of like escape or live vicariously through them on TV. Like, you know, a lot of times, probably when we were in high school, John, maybe getting into young adulthood, Stone Cold Steve Austin, not necessarily a wholesome guy, but you know, you could envision yourself like giving a stunner to your principal or to your boss, and you're
Yep.
just like, dude, how cool would that be? Okay, back to reality. I'm not really going to do that, but that's the kind of thing. It was escapism, more or less. And you know, Sting is a great one. John Cena is another one who actually, for kids, is probably someone pretty wholesome to look up to. Again, not perfect individual. Sting might have had some things in his past that weren't the best, but
Yeah.
overall, probably a pretty, almost not perfect, but very wholesome dude. John Cena, the same thing. So the whole reason that I kind of wanted to bring the topic up was the people that are kind of popular in today's society, and I work with a lot of kids in my nonprofit organization. A lot of the people they look up to now are like more like artists and rappers and things like that. And most of the stuff they talk about, quite frankly, is garbage.
Yes.
And I don't know if, and to be fair, a lot of the kids are they're just listening to the beat. They don't really care what they're talking about. And a lot of them kind of think it's funny. They're like, oh, like the new Cardi B song is, or the new Megan Thee Stallion song is funny, and I'm going to twerk to it. I'm like, yeah, but you're so desensitized to that. You don't realize that you're 13 years old and you're like shaking your ass for the world to see on TikTok, and your parents are oblivious to it or don't even care.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, when you, I mean, not that you spend time on TikTok all day, John, watching this crap, but like, I don't even have a TikTok, but
No, me neither.
yeah, good. You know, it's out there though. So my question then becomes, does, and maybe that's not the norm, but it seems like it's a lot of young people. Does that make you fear for the future of our society?
Yes, I would say yes, certainly. And it comes down to this isn't where I thought the conversation was going, but that's fine. It to me, it's more about going to be about. Oh, your dog wants to weigh in there. That's okay. She just wants to be involved. That's all.
She was literally sleeping 5 minutes before I called you, just chilling by the fire. But okay. So anyway,
But yeah, I think it comes back to values. I mean, it's the parents not teaching their kids values. That's what ultimately it comes down to. I mean, if the parents aren't teaching the values, then they're going to be out there shaking their butt at 12 years old or younger, even at this point. You know, on TikTok or on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube. I mean, it's everywhere now. We live online. The world has changed from when you and I were even in high school. There was, you know, AOL was just starting when we were in high school. It was, you know, that being connected even just that little bit with AOL Instant Messenger and stuff was crazy. But we didn't. Now everything is online. Everything. We're having a podcast right now. So technology has changed, and with that, I mean, values seem to have dropped off. You know, their families aren't spending dinner time together. They're all spending dinner time at the same table, but they're all just scrolling on their phones. Yep. So, yeah, I think it is a problem. But what about you? As far as like heroes, did you have any celebrity heroes? And what did you think about the like? What do you think it comes down to the values thing, or is there another reason that you think it's that these celebrities have so much sway over the people?
I do think a lot of it is what you said with the values. Growing up, it was all about, you know, when I was younger and didn't really know what a good worker was, it was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and things like that, just because they were, again, larger than life type of people. All the superheroes, which is why it's so cool to see what they're doing with, you know, Marvel films nowadays and why I'm so into them. But like that was, you always wanted to be the protector. You always wanted to idolize the people that were helping other people. Now it's just like, I hate to sound like a bitter old man, but it's like you just want to be famous just to be famous. You just want a lot of followers just so you can be like, yo, I got a lot of followers. And it just seems bizarre. Like if you get a lot of followers as a byproduct of doing something really cool and doing something that takes a lot of talent, a lot of hard work, that really helps people, that really inspires people, which is what good art should do, in my opinion. Amazing. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like John, your story of life and what you have been through is inspiring to me. And you know, more so than anything that, like, I don't know, these Instagram influencers have ever done in their lives, just because they might have abs or something. People are like, oh, I'm going to follow this guy, or this girl has big boobs and a nice butt, I'm going to follow her. And I'm not saying I don't appreciate those things for what they
Yeah.
are. I like a good beehive, you know, but
Yeah. Well, who doesn't?
it's not something I'm going to broadcast out there. It's something I'm going to enjoy on my private time, perhaps. But the whole point of that is, I don't know if it's become uncool or if it's become if we're just getting older. But to me, the people that really inspire me are people that have overcome things, or that people that want to help other people, or they want to do what I would consider good things. And it's ironic, because in my favorite comic book character of all time is Thanos, and he's evil, and or at least from his perspective, he's not. But
Yeah.
anyone
Exactly.
you know, it's not good necessarily to wipe out half of the universe, but I think it's just because it's just like, again, the escapism. It's a way for me to kind of get back at the people who I think are stupid in the world and take up space and don't really contribute anything. So I don't really feel that way, but part of you wants to, like, oh, I relate to that. Like, screw all these people. They're not doing anything to help, or they're not playing their part. So whatever. But I guess another thing that I wanted to talk about was, a lot of celebrities are not good role models now, and I don't think they should ever be the ones to raise your kids. But I think parents, and I'm not a parent in my own right, so I don't really know. I don't have my own kids, but one does. An 8-year-old, my girlfriend's son, Gabe, who I love, lives with me.
I don't either. I have lots of nieces and nephews, but I do not have any of my own children.
Right. So I don't mean this in a negative way, but I think that because everyone is so busy trying to make ends meet, working probably multiple jobs, it's very rare that one of the parents, if they're even together, because that's rare in and of itself. But if most of the parents are working, they're not around, they're tired at the end of the day. I get it. So they're like, here, take the iPad, just go be on your phone, play video games, whatever. And I think there's a time and a place for that, but I think it's really good to have a balance. Easy for me to say I don't have my own kids, but I just think it's like instant gratification from the devices, from social media. And look, even mom and dad are on social media now. If they're in their 30s, they're trying to get their own followers too. So it's just this really weird dichotomy. So I guess my question for the show was, do you think people that are celebrities, or even people that are influencers in their own lives, have an obligation to be role models or set a good example? Or do you think that the professional work of a celebrity, of an artist, should be separate from how we view them as an entertainer? And I think we should preface it, because if a celebrity gets a DUI or something, that's one thing. You're like, oh, he's a piece of shit. But like, there's that, and then there's also like the Bill Cosby type of thing, where we should probably differentiate, because I can't separate something that drastic without looking at them a certain way. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's talk about some of that, because you brought up a lot of really good points there, and I want to talk about all of them if we have the time. Let's start with, like, if a celebrity, does something bad, or does something out of, something heinous, criminally or otherwise. My opinion is on that. I mean, certainly for that person as a person to do that, like for Bill Cosby, or a probable or potential Michael Jackson issue, that's heinous. They should still be punished. They should be, all the things that it would happen if it would happen to anybody else. But does that negate their work? Does that erase everything that they've done as an artist? I don't know how you could. I don't think that you can do that. I don't know how that's possible. Of course, what Bill Cosby did and what Michael Jackson maybe did, or even Chris Benoit, since we were talking about wrestling. Does that undo everything else? Does that undo their entire career, their influence? That's a really hard question. For me, I'd have to say no. I don't think that you can just erase all of Michael Jackson's influence on pop culture. It's happened. It's, you know what I mean? His work led us to a place in pop music, which led us to another place, which led us to another place, which is where it is now. You can't just go back and erase something in history. You just can't do that. So I think it's important that while we acknowledge what these artists have given us, it is important to, like you said, differentiate between their work and then how they end up living as a person, because they could be a really terrible person but do some really artistic things. And I think that you got to try and find that balance of, do you not support that person? But I don't I don't think you can ignore an artist's work for something that they did later on. Like, you just can't ignore it, especially if you have influence like Chris Benoit or Michael Jackson or Bill Cosby. They've influenced generations. Their work influenced generations, so you can't just go back and erase that. But I also think that you have to walk that fine line in celebrating it too. You can't really like celebrate it, but you can't ignore it.
That's a really good way to put it. Let me ask you something that might be controversial, and you can cut it out if you want. I don't know how much you talk on the show about supporting Trump or not. But obviously, in my opinion, Trump is next level genius in a lot of ways. But let's face it, he's had a checkered past in a lot of ways too. I think the way that they publicized the 2005 audio that he had right before the election in 2016 was, I think it was BS the way they brought it up. However, it was said. Is it different when it's a politician, someone who is supposed to be leading our free nation? That I would not put someone like a potential leader of our country in the same category as a movie star. So do you think that you feel differently from what you just said about someone who's potentially in a leadership position like that? Or do you think same thing? Because some people would say, I like Donald Trump because I relate to him, because I'm a flawed individual as well. And I relate to this dude, and he made something of himself, and now he's a different person than he used to be, but he's still got that venomous, acerbic, real delivery about him. So, and I'm just using Trump as an example here, but do you feel like someone who's in that position, although he is a celebrity, and the same can be said about Joe Biden. There's a lot of stuff out there right now. It's all alleged, but there's a litany of stuff that he may have done in some YouTube videos I saw that were pretty creepy, if you ask me. However, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm definitely not into hiding my political opinion. We do some political episodes here on the Boiling Point, but and I am a Trump supporter. I did vote for Trump, and I also don't think the election is over yet. There's still things that are happening, so the election is not over. As far as his past and then the presidential position, I think yes, when you are the president, you're held to a higher standard, certainly. But again, you can't just ignore something in their past. But people can change. You know what I mean? It's like the opposite for Bill Cosby and Chris Benoit. Maybe they didn't do something like Trump. I mean, he got caught saying some things that were misogynistic, and he probably should have said that you could probably pin on every single guy on the face of the planet at some point. And there's your dog popping up to we can see her right there, so that's pretty cool. But you know, it's yeah, he said something he shouldn't have, and somebody recorded it. I mean, if you and I don't know, I'm not going to speak for you, I'll speak for me. If you recorded everything that I have said since I was age 16 to now, you are going to find and hear some things that you're going to be like, whoa, what did he just say? But that's part of growing up and you changing as a person. Because I mean, and with Trump, he was also a Democrat, you know, a long time ago. He started off on the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. So yeah, you can. I think you can change. You can change your opinions. You can change your mind on topics. I think it's important for politicians to change their mind and change their opinions as they learn new things. We have such these problems. Politicians, as soon as they change their mind, they're immediately, you know, condemned for not knowing what they're talking about or whatever. And it's, wait a minute, it's like, wait, you want somebody to be open to change their mind because they were presented with new evidence and they've decided to change their mind. That's what we should be as a people moving forward. So with the president, I mean, and Joe Biden, you're right. Joe Biden is a creepy son of a bitch. That's my opinion on him. But at the same time, you know, if he turns out after all this stuff is over, if it turns out that he legitimately did win the election, then he's the president, and that's the way it is. But I do think that once you're there, like when you're going for president, then your attitude has to have been changed. You can't be running for president and get caught with some of these things while you're running or while you're president. I think I don't think you should just hold somebody to the coals because of something they said in their past. But I think once you start getting to the president being like an exception, because the rest of the celebrities, I mean, yeah, they do take on a role of being role models and stuff. And I do think that if you want to be popular and you want to get paid make that kind of money, then that responsibility comes along with it, in my opinion. But with the presidency being held to a higher standard and stuff, I think once you start running for it, or once your aspirations are for the presidency, you better be much closer to the man that you are going to become before you get to the presidency.
I wholeheartedly agree. And Curtis is probably pulling his hair out right now listening to this episode already.
He's probably not listening to this episode.
Yeah, no, probably not. Well, that's okay.
Turned it off 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, he probably doesn't have any hair left from his fantasy season the way it went, but that's beside the point.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, so I do think I agree wholeheartedly that some level of responsibility has to come with it. With that said, a lot of celebrities will then complain once they've been established for a while that they get no privacy. One thing that I feel strongly about is when you get paid that much, when you want all the attention, you don't get to kind of pick and choose. I'm not saying people should like creep outside and lay in your bushes to take pictures of you when you come out of your house. But
I that's what I was about to say. If I could just jump in there, the privacy thing. If you're in your own home on your own property, then you have the same rights as I do to privacy. Absolutely, you should have those rights to privacy in your home, on your property, something that you own. Then you have those rights. Those are your constitutional and God-given rights, and you have the right to privacy. But if you're out at a restaurant and people are taking pictures of you, I get that it might be annoying. And I get that from their point of view, the people taking pictures or bugging them for questions or autographs, that can get annoying for the person. They just want to have a meal or whatever. But again, that comes with it. You want to be popular. That's going to happen. So you have to decide. It's just like any other job. What are you willing to do for what amount of money? And when you're going to become famous, then you have to weigh that. How much of my privacy do I want to give up for my career, or for how much money? That's what it is. That's the trade-off.
Because you can't turn it off, because when you have those red carpet premieres, you want the streets stacked with people and it's all about you, and you can't really pick and choose when to turn your fame on and off. It'd be wonderful if you could, but you can't. So, I just think when they complain about that, I get very, very turned off. Now, I understand, like you said, if it's like very obtrusive, that's another thing. People have to take responsibility too. Like, I've met and worked with a lot of famous people, and I've seen people go way, way overboard, like stalking them in a bathroom. Like, dude, let the guy piss.
Yeah.
You know? But it's also like, dude, if you're on the street and like, and someone sees you that looks up to you, they're gonna ask for a picture or something. And I mean, most people who have not achieved that level of fame yet would be like, oh, I'd be happy to do it. I'm sure you get sick of it, but I'm going to name drop real quick, but I did a podcast 5 years ago with John Morrison, and
nice.
he said, I think celebrities have the opportunity to set a good example. He's like, never, and John even said on the show, he's like, I'm not like, I think he used Matthew McConaughey as the example. He's like, I'm not like Johnny Depp or Matthew McConaughey famous. He's like, but in my world, people know who I am. He's like, and I try to use that as a platform and an opportunity to not be perfect, but to just set a good example, or take a minute out to say hi to a kid or whatever. And he's like, so no, I don't think they have an obligation. We had this almost the same conversation. The world was very different just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But he said, it's an opportunity, dude. And he's like, that's one thing WWE does so well that I don't think people realize. He's like, they go like, the job is to wrestle in the ring, yes, but the real job is to do the media, to do the Make-A-Wish stuff, to do the Special Olympics. And he's like, and we don't televise all that. Or you might see a clip on Raw or something. He's like, well, we're doing that like 20 days out of the month. And he's like, and you can opt out of doing that. You have to do a little bit contractually, but he's like, the guys like John Cena and Miz, he's like, they do every single event. Randy Orton, who most people think is an asshole, which he used to be. He's like, he's at every single one. CM Punk, even though a lot of people don't like him anymore, like he did just as many Make-A-Wishes as John Cena did for like 3 years straight. Rey Mysterio did too. And he's like, and you don't publicize all of them. He's like, but that's the opportunity that we have. He's like, even if it's just talking to, just showing up, though, it makes those kids' lives, So when people like, look at DDP. I know that you're probably a big DDP fan too. Like, he's changed people's lives. He's probably made enough money off of wrestling and DDP yoga to do nothing for the rest of his life. But because he aspires for more, he literally changes people's lives. And once again, with Sting, with Jericho, with Jake the Snake, obviously
Jake
with
the
Razor
Snake.
Ramon.
Oh my
Unbelievable.
goodness. Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, Jake the Snake. That's probably one of his biggest success stories. Well, I mean, at least his biggest wrestling success story, because he's got other success stories too. I've seen his videos where this guy that's using crutches to walk, and then it's 6 months later and he's doing the full stretches of the DDP yoga and walking around. You're just like, that's not the same that's not the same. There's no way that's the same person, but it is. I mean, DDP came up with something that is helping professional wrestlers and a lot of people, but really a lot of professional wrestlers, because just like with football, when they get to the end of their careers after they retire, and they're not exercising and working out with the same kind of regimen because their bodies can't take it anymore, their metabolism's still up. They still eat a lot, and then they end up packing on weight, which just makes their health worse. And DDP yoga is a way for them to keep the weight off and stay flexible, stay healthy, and it's not as hard on your joints and your muscles as like weightlifting and running and most of the cardio stuff that most people do is. DDP yoga is very easy on your joints, and for people who have problems standing, or you know what I mean. He's got a whole line of stuff. And yeah, that's crazy that he did that. That was just absolutely crazy. I mean, DDP was always a different kind of superstar when he was wrestling. I mean, breaking into the business at age 35 is something you don't do anyway. And he did it and then made it to the top and was a multi-time world champion within 15 years, whereas most people sometimes have 20. Rey Mysterio was wrestling for 20 or 25 years before he finally got a world title shot and a world title belt. Chris Benoit too. So that's yeah, that's I kind of forgot where I was going with that point. So.
That happens to me a lot. No, dude, I'm gonna name drop one more time, but a quick DDP story. So when I worked at Vegas Fuel Energy Drink, we sponsored a main event party that was right before WrestleMania, not affiliated with WWE, but DDP was there, Kevin Nash was there, a bunch of other guys, John, and I knew John already. And I talked to DDP and I offered him a sugar-free Vegas Fuel energy drink. And he's like, dude, I love your attitude. He's like, I love what you're trying to do. He's like, I get it. He's like, I don't put anything like no caffeine in my body except for black coffee. So he like lives his stuff. A few years later, and I was really nice to him. He was super nice. I was like, okay, cool. He's a legend. Awesome. Can I get a picture? Cool. 2 or 3 years later, I was co-hosting a podcast called the Robbie EC3 Experience with Robbie E and EC3 from TNA, because they're allowed to actually have lives where WWE guys aren't. Robbie E was like, "Why don't we get DDP on?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." And I was like, I think I'm LinkedIn friends with him. I was like, and of course, Robbie and EC3 knew him, but not well. And I was like, I met DDP a few years back. I was like, I'll message him. So I messaged him on LinkedIn. I said, I'm Jordan. I'm with Vegas Fuel. We're doing this because Vegas Fuel sponsored the show and I hosted it and produced it. And I was like, I'm doing this podcast with EC3 and Robbie E. I was like, I met you at this main event party before WrestleMania. There's no way you remember me. Within 5 minutes, DDP messaged me back and said, Jordan, I remember you, the Vegas Fuel guy. He goes, awesome. What day do you want to do the show? I was like, what? So I was like, well, here's my number. Text me your schedule. Within 5 minutes, a text from DDP, and I wish I had my old phone because I seriously wish I had his number so we could stalk him right now. He was like, hey, bro, it's DDP. He's like, just let me know what day you want to do it and how long you need me for. I was like, holy shit. I was like, this guy is like actually as cool as he looks on videos and stuff.
Yeah.
We did the show. He gave us an hour. He was funny, engaged. He texted me afterwards and thanked me for it for some reason. So it's a lot of people say don't meet your heroes, but I got to meet him, and that was probably because he probably thought it wasn't because of me. He was probably like, okay, he's actually with some other wrestlers. He's trying to do some cool stuff. Seems like a nice enough guy. It wasn't because he thought I was so talented or anything like that, but he understood what I was trying to do, just trying to make a way in the world. And it was so cool that he did that. So I have nothing but great stuff to say about him. So
yeah,
sometimes celebrities actually live up to what you think.
Yeah, and especially like you said, with the way we're connected now and stuff. I mean, a lot of people do use that as an opportunity. So a lot of people do that, especially with podcasts. It seems it's nothing to do a podcast. You sit down for an hour, you talk, and then you go on with your day. So, a lot of people don't really have problems doing that either. And that's cool that he like got back to you and stuff like that. I'm sure that it had probably more. I mean, like the EC3 and the other wrestler thing, he probably just knew that it was going to be like wrestling related. But I'm sure that he got back to you more because he remembered you than just that it was going to be other wrestlers. Or maybe it was a way for him to still network and reach out more to more people. You know what I mean? A guy like DDP is probably like, yeah, as long as I can talk to one person, I'll do it. You know what I mean? That to me seems like the kind of person he is.
Absolutely. So my point for saying all that, not to try to make myself look cool, because if I saw him on the street today, I doubt he'd even remember. We haven't talked in years, but it was just that a lot of times I'm going to call, even though I think you're pretty extraordinary, John, we're relatively average people here.
Yeah.
It's very easy for us also, because I want to be clear, like I'm not putting down every celebrity. Like it's easy for us to want to knock people down, and maybe not you, but for me, I have an ego.
No,
So
it's
when
easy.
I
Yeah.
see, yeah, so it's like as soon as I hear Joe Biden did what, yep, definitely did it. Piece of shit. You know what I mean?
I try to make an effort not to react like that with with anybody. I really try hard. So I would hope that even if you know something was released about Joe Biden tomorrow, I wouldn't immediately be like, oh yeah, he did it. Hopefully, I hope I would be smart enough to get on and check and see and check. You know what I mean? Like actually do my due diligence. But yeah, you're
Me
right.
too.
It's easy.
I use him as an example. Like, okay, so Tyreek Hill, your superstar receiver on your fantasy team, when it was the whole
Yeah.
thing with him and possibly breaking his kid's arm or something like that, maybe hitting his girlfriend, immediately, because I wasn't a Chiefs fan, I'm a Patriots fan, I let my personal bias go. I'm like, yo, he did that shit. But if it was Tom Brady, I'd have been like, no way.
Yeah.
Never in a million years. And it turned out, like, I guess they didn't have enough evidence. I don't know. But all I can go by is what the letter of the law said at this point. So I can't hate Tyreek Hill for something I wasn't even there. It might have been nothing,
Yeah.
because if someone was saying that about me and it wasn't accurate, I'd be so pissed. But just some idiot in Pennsylvania who doesn't root for you, letting his own personal feelings come into play, I automatically condemn this dude. It's not fair. Maybe he did
Yeah.
do it, maybe he didn't. But how can I say he did when I wasn't there? But that's what people do, including me.
Yeah, we're all that's something we're all guilty of from time to time, certainly reacting without thinking and speaking before we think. And I mean that's certainly something we're all guilty of. And that's what I was saying though, that you can't hold people to bringing the conversation back around full circle here. That's why you can't hold people to things that they've said in the past. You have to hold them to the person that they are now, not the person they were then. I mean, if you're talking about like an incident that happened a week ago, that's different, obviously. You know what I mean? Time does matter. So if you're talking about something that's last week or something that's 20 years ago, those are two very different, time frames there. 20 something that was 20 years ago, then that person could be a completely different person by now. Something that happened last week, then even if they're trying to change, they probably still haven't done it quite yet. It's going to take time for them to change as a person. But you can't just hold everyone to things that they have said in the past, because we're all growing and we're all changing and we're all learning. And just to like this whole cancel culture where someone's getting canceled for something that happened 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and that's ridiculous. You can't do that. You have to hold people accountable for who they are now, not who they were.
So let me ask you this: I want to ask you both sides. People that I would consider modern, like you talked about Dale Earnhardt earlier, Sting. Who are some more modern people that maybe you don't like look up to per se, but you're like, oh, that dude's pretty cool. Like I always go back, and they're not super modern, but like Will Smith, Justin Timberlake, been famous their whole lives since their early 20s or teens. It's like neither one of those dudes have ever had a scandal. How come they never do? But like, I don't know, some idiot is always getting arrested or getting a DUI every week.
Uh,
And those are not super modern examples. So I apologize because I'm asking you to do something. But is there any athlete or celebrity that's like relatively modern? Like you obviously like Patrick Mahomes because he's probably going to win you our league. Like he
I, I,
seems like
I,
a genuinely good dude. So
I'm a Patrick
who are you
Mahomes
looking
fan.
up?
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, who's somebody like in the modern era that you think is like a pretty good role model? Not perfect, but like sets a pretty good example.
I'd honestly, if I had to pick my favorite person in Hollywood for being a person. I wouldn't. This person would also certainly be in my top five for actors. I just don't know if they would be number one, but I would probably have to say Denzel Washington.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, I mean he's somebody that he doesn't speak out about politics. He doesn't wade himself into the mud, but he's also a good person. He's a Christian and he believes in doing good and setting that role model example. So again, he's not perfect. I'm sure that if you looked into his past, there would be a couple of shady things or sketchy things that maybe he was involved with or happened to him. But his overall persona is a pretty good person. So I would have to say Denzel Washington's probably one of my favorite people for people not being like an actor, but for being a person. What about you? Do you have one?
I actually use him a lot as an example, the same way that I would use like Will Smith or like Justin Timberlake, whether you like his music or not. Denzel Washington is, I feel, and again, never having met him, I feel like when you see him act, even though he's acting, you get like part of him with his performance. Like his personality just resonates into that character. So yeah, I've always looked up to him in that way. First of all, he's a brilliant actor. Second of all, like I feel like he is probably the guy you see is kind of like what you get. It's gonna sound weird, man, but like John Cena, I met him in passing. I know so many people that know him. EC3, for example, is one of my good friends, and he was like, "Dude, I'm at Cena's house right now." He texts me because he knows I'm like upset. And I'm like, "You're a dick." He's like, "Yeah, I'm drinking wine with him." I'm like, "You're even a bigger dick." And then he's like, and I'm like, level with me, dude. Like, what's the deal? And he's like, "What you see is what you get." He's like, "Best guy you'll ever meet." And I'm like, "That's really cool." People like him, and honestly, like I'm a Tom Brady fan, and a lot of people don't like Brady because he might have deflated football. I think a lot of people just don't like him because he's great. I know he's a little bit arrogant. I know he has his things, but like I look up to him. But I think the new generation, and I the only reason I don't like Patrick Mahomes is because I feel like he's going to be the reason Brady doesn't win anymore because he's too good. He's like too good. And I'll probably play you in the championship in fantasy football and lose because of him. He'll have like 100 points by himself. But honestly, dude, Patrick Mahomes is like the future of sports, and he's just like a nice dude. And like even LeBron, like I don't love LeBron.
Yeah,
but like
he needs to keep his mouth shut a little bit more.
I do too. I agree. But like at the end of the day, Michael Jordan never built colleges for kids. You know what I mean? Like it's cool. It's cool to see, and Michael Jordan's the GOAT.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see people like that have a social conscience that and like I don't root for LeBron to win NBA title. I'm a Spurs fan, but it's cool to know that like and could it be agenda based? Could it be a tax write off? Yeah, but does it matter to you why people do the things they do as long as they do them? I mean, I think if you just like disingenuously do something just for the clout or whatever, I think that sucks. But if you do things and then you get a little kickback for it, it doesn't really bother me. It's cool that he does those things.
That's what I'm saying. And separating the work, like a person's work or artistry from the actual person. I'm not a Matthew McConaughey fan. I don't like him in movies. There's a few movies. There's like two or three that are okay. But I'm not a Matthew McConaughey fan. I don't think he's super great at acting, but he is a really, really nice person in real life, at least from everything that I understand about him. I don't know him. I can't name drop like you can, but he seems, from everything I've read and everything I see, like that's when he's not on screen acting, he seems like like a really nice person. He does a lot of charity work. And I think that's great. I don't have to be a fan of him, but I think he's a good person. Like I'm a fan of him as a person because he does good work. He does good things. But I'm just not a fan of his work, really. You know what I mean? And that's how you separate. You can be, I don't know who, someone's beeping my horn outside here. But you can be a fan of someone's work. And then they do something bad in real life where they, maybe they're not a good person, but you can't ignore the work that they've done. And the reverse is the same. Maybe you don't like their work, but the person is a good person and he does good things with the money and with the opportunities that he gets. So, and that's why it is important to separate, I think, artists from their work sometimes, because, artistry influences pop culture. It influences people. And while that is important, you still need to know about the person as a person. And if they're not a good person, then that should matter. Just even if you can't ignore the work that they've done, it should matter that they're not a good person still.
I agree. And like what you said about LeBron, like I'm never someone who's like a multi-millionaire like that and doesn't really honestly live in the real world. And like, good for him for coming up out of the ghetto and everything out. Like,
Yeah.
good for him. I don't want to hear about your political stance, dude. You're different. Like,
No.
I agree. Like, just keep about that kind of thing. Yes, I don't really care. But if you want to be like, yo, I just built a $100 million school for poor kids that are all going to get to go for free. I'm like, wow, man, that's cool. I was talking to my dad about comparing Jordan to LeBron, and I was like, here's the deal: Michael Jordan, best player I've ever seen, had a gambling addiction, publicly had this scandal where he like cheated on his wife. Like, LeBron's had the same girlfriend and wife since high school. He's like honestly kind of like a saint. Now maybe he does stuff on the side, whatever. We don't know. But in this era of social media where everything's public, like, we wouldn't have heard about it. That's crazy. Now, you shouldn't get credit for stuff you're supposed to do, like being a decent boyfriend or husband.
Actually, I tend to disagree with that. I think if we're going to demonize people who make the mistakes and hold their feet to the fire the way that they are, then I think the reverse should be. I think we should celebrate people who have never messed up or who have never, beat somebody or got drunk in a drunken car accident or been charged with something. Like, I think that's important to celebrate too. Like with Denzel and with like what you were just saying about it, that is important. I think actually.
That's a really good point, because so we celebrate people who, let's just say, John, I go on a 1-year Coke binge where I'm snorting lines every night and I'm doing stupid shit. And then a year later, I'm drug free now. People would applaud. But if I'm like, yo, I've never done Coke in my life, people would be like, so?
Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, listen, if we're going to hold people accountable for the mistakes that they made, then the reverse should be. If you haven't made mistakes, if you haven't gotten a drug charge or whatever, that should be celebrated. That's something that should be celebrated. I think if that were celebrated more, we'd see less victims and more heroes.
All right, so let me ask you this: who are some celebrities or athletes, whatever, that you think are like very overrated or that people put on a pedestal where they shouldn't be, whether it's for their attitude or even if it's just for their art, where you're like, I think they suck. I don't get it.
Tom Brady. Obviously, I'm just kidding. That's just kidding. I knew that you'd get a laugh out of that one.
No, if you want to say that his fashion sense is questionable and kissing his kids on the mouth is weird, that I understand.
No, not
I can't really defend him.
Actually, I'll bring up this person because they were just in the news recently. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but Elliot Page.
Yeah.
Formerly Ellen Page, who was in the X-Men movies from Fox, and she was in Juno, I don't know what to say. I'm going to stop talking about it before I get into it.
You're on a list now.
Yeah, I know. I'm so on a list. This whole episode just got banned from YouTube. But of course that means I've succeeded today.
Yeah. So I did see the article. I did see, like, this is what a lot of people do, including me. I'm about to tell myself. They'll see an article, form an opinion, and not even read it. So I didn't read it. I read the headline. I was like, oh, okay. Ellen Page really did blow. She was in the X-Men stuff. She blew up because of Juno, I believe. And then they kind of put her in a more prominent role in the X-Men after that. Like Days of Future Past, she all of a sudden was a star.
She's Kitty. She was Kitty Pryde in the Fox's X-Men universe.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong. In X3, she debuted. Yes. She was in it a little bit, but then after Juno, they're like, oh, we're going to make her the secondary main character after Wolverine, who of course should be the star. But like, she got a much bigger role once she was more famous because of Juno, which totally blew her up.
Yeah, actually, she even replaced Rogue, because Rogue was actually supposed to be in Days of Future Past, and in the final, and if you get the extended version, then you can get, you get both versions of it. You can get the version with Rogue in it, but in the theatrical release, they actually replaced her with Kitty Pryde, and Kitty Pryde all of a sudden had this ability to send Wolverine back in time.
Yeah, she and instead of just walking through walls, she was all of a sudden like telekinetic as well.
Yeah.
Because she's famous now. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, that did happen. So yeah, it's amazing. She's like the Jennifer Lawrence of the old X-Men series, where she just like got super famous, and then now all of a sudden, Mystique's the main character. But anyway,
Yeah.
so is that what happened? She's like transgender now, or
Yes. Yeah, he is transgender now, and he is called Elliot Page is his name.
okay?
And apparently it's this whole big, how they have. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that there aren't people who really have a problem with being a male or a female and wanting to be the opposite. I'm not going to say that they don't necessarily suffer from that. But it seems like when people from Hollywood do it, it's so theatrical in the way that they come out that it's really hard to buy. And she released this whole thing, this whole story about how it's always been this way and this and that. And it's just, I'm like, I don't, it's all of a sudden now, I don't know. I'm not buying some of it. Just some of her story. I'm not really buying her story. There's certainly people out there who are certainly dealing with this for real. I honestly don't think that this is one of them. And I have definitely been banned from YouTube now.
No, dude, then I'll get banned right with you, because it always seems to be at a crucial time in their fame, when their fame is like waning a little bit, that all of a sudden it's like this major issue. Oh, I've been struggling with it for 20, like with Bruce Jenner. I'm sorry, with
Yeah.
I can't even remember what Bruce's name is now, but it's like, dude. Yes, thank you. They're celebrating you. However, if that's the case, you put your family through 20 some plus years of basically torment where you weren't really in it or invested, and you were struggling with this thing with yourself. So to me, it's not, and again, I never dealt with it. So to me, that's not necessarily courageous. It's almost like, why are you waiting till now if you were always struggling with this? I can tell you, and it's not the same thing, but most people would not think that I'm an anxious person, and I'm not anymore because I dealt with it. In 2008, I was clinically diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and I don't want anyone to feel bad for me, but I can tell you this: I didn't really want to talk about it, but I attacked it head on, and I certainly didn't want to publicize it in any way or even tell people, even that were the closest to me. I said, I'll just internalize this and deal with it. Now, maybe it's something different, but I am 1000% with you. It's very hard to buy when it's like, why now, when we haven't heard anything from you, or like you're struggling and you need something to make you the focal point. And I know people that are pretty prominent people who have agreed with us on this and have really kind of been vilified for that opinion. But again, with you, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but when they put that whole sob story out and they put this whole publication out, it's very hard to digest.
Yeah, it's hard to get past that when it's so theatrical the way they come out and release things. It's just too much sometimes. It just seems like it's so orchestrated and planned, especially when it happens when their fame is waning, when they're not really appearing in movies, when nobody wants them in the movies anymore, and then now you're coming out and now you're everywhere again.
Yeah, like so, and I feel awful that Robin Williams is dead, but let me tell you, that dude was so talented. He must have been tortured because you didn't know. At least
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he's just dead. So he was probably really dealing with something he didn't want anyone to know. Look at Chad Boseman.
Yeah.
Dude, we talked about this on before. Like he didn't want attention for that, and people and any picture of him, people were blasting him on Twitter. They're like, "Yo, you're anorexic, bro." Like he could have been like, "Oh, really? I'm dying, dude.
Yeah.
Feel bad for me." And this dude is like Black Panther for real.
Yeah, that's the difference though, right there. See that when you come out when it comes out in such a theatrical way, to me, you're doing it because you want pity, you want attention. That's why you're doing it. Chadwick Boseman was dying of cancer while filming Black Panther movies for the people, the same people who were, vilifying him, condemning him, saying that he was anorexic or whatever, and nobody knew except for maybe a handful of people at best, and now that he's gone, everybody's like, oh man, oh yeah, and that's I think I almost think that's why he didn't tell anybody, because I think it was a way for people to be like, oh my goodness, what did I say about him? And this was the real reason why. Like I think it was I almost think, of course I don't know this for real, but it seems to me that he did it not only just to keep private, just to maintain his privacy, because it wasn't anybody else's business. And even though he could have come out and got a whole bunch of sympathy and could have been the biggest star in Hollywood, and he would have been celebrated, and he would have received Oscars, and he would have received Academy Awards, all of it. He would have gotten all of it. He would have, if he would have come out and publicly about his cancer. But he didn't. He kept it in. He kept it internal with just a few people. He still went to work every day because he didn't want that to be his legacy. He wanted his legacy to be his work, not his disease, not what he died from. And also, especially, I guarantee you, once people started calling him names or making fun of him and stuff, guarantee you he just looked at it and just scrolled right past. He didn't even pay it no mind, because he knew that eventually those people were going to realize that they were fools in the first place. And I think I have a lot of respect for Chadwick Boseman and the way he handled that whole thing, because I can't imagine doing that. Because I mean, even with being a public figure and only having maybe your close family and friends know, that's got to be crazy. That's got to be crazy to deal with.
Yeah, another guy that and it's amazing too. And with him, I don't think it's the case, but like I don't know if you remember when Nipsey Hussle died. I never listened to a Nipsey Hussle song in my entire life. Okay, and apparently he's a talented hip hop artist that was killed, and that's awful. But people that I know didn't listen to Nipsey Hussle records ever. All of a sudden in their stories are like, rest in peace, yo, like Nipsey Hussle, legend. I'm like, dude, name one Nipsey Hussle song. They're like, I know they don't know any. So it's funny because, like you said, when people die or they go through something, like Heath Ledger, should he have won the Oscar for the Joker? Probably.
Yes.
But
yes, he should have. Whether he was alive or not, he absolutely should have won the Oscar.
If he wouldn't have died, I don't even think he gets nominated, and not because he didn't deserve it.
No, but because they don't do that with superhero movies. You're absolutely right. That he was the first. He was the first supervillain to ever be. I don't know. I'd have to look this up if he was the first ever person from a comic book movie. I don't think that was, but he was definitely the first villain to be nominated for an Oscar from a comic book movie. And yeah, the only reason he got that was because he passed away. And and not only is that wrong, but he should have been nominated before he died because he deserved it, and then he should have won because he deserved it. But then you're talking about the whole Oscars and Academy Awards and all that's, I think, is just as political and internal as it is anyway. I mean, most of those awards, I hardly don't buy anymore. They give to the wrong people all the time, clearly, and they don't recognize people who should be recognized. So
I don't even watch the award shows anymore because it's like, hey, let's bash Trump. Okay.
Yep.
No thanks. But anyway, we were talking about celebrities that you thought were overrated. Is there other than Tom Brady though? Is there anybody else? Like,
well, I mean, I'm not a Matthew McConaughey fan, so I think his hype is way overdone. I'm not. He's good, and I think he's gotten better now that he's older. Like, I have more respect for some of the roles that he's taken now that he's older. Listen, I just think he was in too many of those random chick flicks just to make some money, and good for him. Make your money, but that doesn't give you prestige in your acting career. He did a lot of movies that does not add prestige to an acting career. Okay, I'm sorry. I mean, I know that girls love the chick flicks. That's why they're called that. But that's some of it's really bad acting with Matthew McConaughey, and
he kind of plays the same role in every movie that he's in. Like,
at least with the chick flicks, like he's playing the bad guy in the oh man, what is it? Is it the Dark Tower series?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw him in the first one of them, and I think he's going to play a badass villain. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't mind seeing Matthew McConaughey be a Marvel villain.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I'm not a Matthew McConaughey fan, but I think he could do a villain. I think he could play a villain, so I would not mind seeing that. Same with Michael Keaton. He just played the Vulture in the Spider-Man movie. Fantastic. Give him an award too, Michael Keaton, because I thought he was fantastic as the Vulture in Spider-Man.
I think Michael Keaton's fantastic in everything he's in. He didn't win. I don't think he won for Birdman, but that won Best Picture, so he kind of got something. But yeah, whatever. But I find it fascinating. Like you even picked some. You actually kind of went deep, which I respect. But like, I was thinking more along the lines of like, like the Cardi B's and stuff of the world. And like, I love good.
See, those people, I don't even care about that.
Yeah, good. Nor should you. Like
yeah, I mean,
like,
like actors. I appreciate music artists who make good music and who don't just make music to sell records and make money. And I mean, I'm sorry, but your song has to have more than at least 10 lyrics in it. So that's just key right there. It also has to have. It can't just be the same 3 beats through the whole thing too. It's got to have like real music into it. And then with acting and stuff, even though I know a lot of people don't like the superhero movies, I think there's a lot in superhero movies people who are critical of them are not seeing or choosing not to see. But I like good movie roles. I like good acting. Like I like when actors get into their roles. Just as a quick example, Star Wars Episode 3. One of my favorite scenes of any of the movies is the lightsaber battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, between Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, because they practiced so much. They practiced every day for a month to get that lightsaber battle down. That is dedication. That is what I appreciate. I appreciate people taking their craft seriously and investing time into it, which is why I do the same thing with my art business and this podcast, because that's what I respect. I respect the time that people put into their craft to perfect it, to continue to perfect it.
That's my favorite Star Wars movie of all. Not everybody agrees with that. Maybe it was the time that it came out.
Okay, we are back here. We had a little technical difficulties. We were having a little network issues between me and Jordan, so we're going to continue the conversation here. What we were talking about? We were just talking about celebrities and people who maybe are overhyped beyond their. We were talking about Cardi B and the Kardashians.
Yeah, maybe nobody wanted to hear about that. That's why God or whatever entity you believe in shut us down. But yeah, like I don't hate. Let's be clear, because my girlfriend will kill me first of all. But I don't hate. I don't hate the Kardashians. Like a lot of people. Like, let's be honest. Kim got famous. Kim got them all famous, and Kim got famous because of a sex tape. Fine. A lot of people did sex tapes, and a lot of people did not turn it into a multimedia conglomerate empire, whatever. So good for them for doing that. Using their fame and sexuality to get a following. However, now, I mean, freaking Trump had Kim Kardashian at the White House and was freeing people who were possibly wrongfully imprisoned. So,
and Kanye West, he had Kanye West at the White House. Too. I mean, this is America. That's one of the things that makes this country great, is that someone can get that, like, you can get that kind of following, get that kind of reputation, and then the important thing is what you do with it after you get it, of course.
That's it. And even if does every time that Destiny that's my girlfriend, for those who don't know, when she has the Kardashians on YouTube TV, I'm like, why am I watching this? Yet I sometimes can't turn away, and I'm sucked in, and I'm like, they're doing nothing, or this is so contrived. And like, as a professional wrestling fan, people are going to be like, yeah, but that's not real either. But it's a lot more real than what I'm watching on the Kardashians. However, like, I don't hate them, so I don't put them.
I don't hate them either. It takes a lot of energy to hate. So I don't really hate anybody. There's very, very few people in the world that I hate, because it takes a lot of energy to hate. I don't have that kind of time or energy to invest in hatred.
I think the only person that I feel, maybe hatred's not even the right word, but strong dislike, is probably like Hillary Clinton.
I'm not really a big fan of Hillary Clinton. Sure. Yep.
Every time I watch the debate with her, I feel like, I don't know if you ever played Resident Evil back in the day, but I feel like an alien's going to pop out of her skull at any moment. Like, she's probably just a demon, but like, yeah. So now I'm banned from YouTube as well. So this episode will never.
Yep.
But
oh no, it will. I'm on Rumble. I'm on Rumble now, so it will see the light of day. So yeah, no. I'm actually, in the next few weeks, my videos will be released exclusively on Rumble for a few weeks before I put them up on YouTube, because Rumble believes in free speech.
Or have John, or if John or I commit suicide and there's a bullet hole in the back of our head, you know what happened, folks.
Yes, we were Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. Did you watch that documentary on Netflix? Dirty Filthy. What was it called?
No, I didn't know. I didn't see that one.
It was just about like it was basically like from the stories of the victims. And they talked about, so funny enough, you probably know enough by now, Netflix is a very like liberal platform for the most part.
Yeah.
But they literally they showed Epstein with Trump a few times because Epstein was a member at one of Trump's golf
Yeah.
resorts,
Yep.
which he had no control over, didn't know at the time who he was or anything. But one thing they did say, and they didn't say Trump was on his plane and on his island. They said Bill Clinton was on Epstein's plane and on his island.
Yep.
Like definitively said it.
Yep. And you can actually go back and track Trump and Epstein's relationship. And other than him staying at that hotel and them having a few conversations, they that's it. Their relationship ends abruptly after that. I couldn't imagine why.
If you ask me, because I looked into that, he probably did something questionable at one of Trump's clubs. Really, stop.
She wants to be
Destiny or else really, my dog is a shill for the Clintons. But he probably did something questionable at one of the clubs, or maybe Trump wasn't even there because that dude's busy, and they were probably like, "Yo, we need to kick this guy out." And Trump's probably like, "Do what you have to do." That's probably honestly what happened. But all of a sudden, it's like it could have been something that simple, and it got blown up into what everybody says.
Yep.
Like that's my theory, and there's no proof of anything else.
Yeah, it's a really good sound theory. That's backed by at least a little bit of evidence. So, and Brindley's going to be getting a credit in the description of this video when I post it, right?
Yeah, she's all over it. So Destiny and Gabriel just walked in.
All right. Well, we can end the show. So thanks for being on. Do you want to? What about your online thing? Tell people where they can find your online workout.
Yeah, dude. So I'm really more so behind the scenes on it, but it's 5btv.net. That's the website. It'll be probably by the time this airs, it might even be available on the on all the major app platforms. So it is an app as well. But the main thing is 5btv.net. Every time anyone signs up, especially for the Boiling Point listeners, it's a 7-day free trial. So you can cancel with no obligation, no payments, but there's literally over 100 fitness classes for anybody, any fitness level. There's nutritional content. There's podcasts that are coming up soon. We don't have any yet. There's educational content, all kinds of stuff. And it's really good, especially if you're not ready to come back into a gym yet, but feel like you need to work out, or if you just want something to divert your attention and get a little bit more knowledge. It's a great platform. It's 5btv.net. It is presented by Gold's Gym, Lingelstown, and Camp Hill, but it's no affiliation. We have people from Austria and France that are on it. So we're just about a month in. We have 300 subscribers, so we're pretty happy with that, but we want to make it really, really cool and different. So I think, John, when we start our 5btv.net podcast, I'd like to have you on if you're willing to share your story of resilience. Absolutely. It's a lifestyle thing. That's what it's all about. It's just being happy, healthy, overcoming obstacles. Because, dude, you've been dealing with it all your life, and you're happier than ever, stronger than ever, doing stuff all the time. It's really just about overcoming, especially this time right now in 2020. People can't wait to get this year over with. It's a metaphor for like just becoming better. You know what I mean? Getting into the new year. So 5btv.net, that's where I'm living right now. It's occupying all my time, but it's well worth the pursuit. We have hundreds of seniors, dude, who are not ready to come out of their homes yet, but they're able to get their workouts in. We have hundreds of seniors coming into our clubs too that are like in better shape than some 30-year-olds. So that's cool to see. It's such a labor of love, but it's a lot of work, as you know, like as your podcast is, and everything that you're doing with your business and in your art and everything. But that's why we do it, man. So I love being on the show. I know we kind of go all over the place with our conversations, but I think that's what makes our episodes fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely, definitely. Well, thanks for being on the show. We will definitely try and have you on again here. I know Christmas coming up, so everybody's schedule is going to be even worse for the holidays. So we'll try and get Jordan again on before Christmas, but I'm sure if not, we'll have him on shortly after the new year. If that sounds good with you.
Really appreciate it. Congratulations on 20 episodes, man.
All right. And for the viewers, thank you for tuning in. I am JD. That is JMC. And that's the end.